everyone! My adulterous spouse used a crafty trick to keep me away from a party. She had no idea, though, that I had a surprise of my own in store. Join me as I recount this tale of deception, resilience, and the unexpected twist that changed everything. I've been married to my wife, Ashley, for 4 years. We dated for 2 years before tying the knot, so it felt like we had a solid relationship. No obvious signs of trouble. I'm 30 and Ashley is 26. We also have a 3-year-old child named Toby. The incident that exposed Ashley's affair happened on the 4th of July during a party organized by her friend Kelly. A week beforehand, Ashley mentioned that Kelly wanted both of us to come to her July 4th celebration. Normally, we have a reliable babysitter, Sarah, who watches Toby when we go out. However, Ashley claimed she contacted Sarah, only to be told that Sarah's schedule was packed and she couldn't make it. I was disappointed because, ever since Toby was born, Ashley and I haven't spent as much time together. Still, Ashley said she really wanted to go to the party, so she suggested I stay home with our child while she went on her own. I agreed, wanting her to have fun. Here's the twist. Ashley knows I'm not a huge fan of Kelly. Kelly is 23, single, and more carefree than Ashley. I don't want to control Ashley or her friendships. I just cautioned her to be mindful of Kelly's influence. On the morning of July 4th, I made the odd decision to call Sarah myself, something I don't usually do because Ashley typically handles that. I needed to search Ashley's phone for Sarah's number. My plan was to offer Sarah a higher hourly rate, hoping she might be tempted to babysit so I could surprise Ashley by showing up at the party. I wanted to make sure everything was sorted before I told Ashley the good news. When I called Sarah and asked her to reconsider babysitting that evening, she seemed puzzled by my use of reconsider. She said this was the first time anyone had mentioned July 4th to her. She confirmed she never received a call from Ashley regarding that date. To keep the conversation smooth, I fibbed and told Sarah that Ashley might have reached out to a family member instead, but it was now clear Ashley had lied for some reason. Despite my confusion, I arranged with Sarah to come at 10 o'clock p.m. Meanwhile, Ashley had told me she'd be leaving around 8 o'clock p.m. for the party. Before ending my call with Sarah, I asked her not to tell Ashley that she was coming over, explaining I wanted to surprise my wife with a last-minute plan. Ashley left home at 8 o'clock p.m. as stated. Sarah showed up right on time, and once Toby was settled, I headed to the party. Part of me suspected Ashley might not actually be at Kelly's place, but there she was. Kelly greeted me, clearly surprised, and called Ashley over. Ashley looked taken aback, more like stunned. It had been only about 3 hours since she left, but she was already pretty intoxicated. Bloodshot eyes, unfriendly demeanor. She kept asking who was taking care of Toby and why I was there. I reassured her that everything was handled and that I wanted to enjoy the evening with her. It was a medium-sized gathering, maybe 15 to 20 people crammed inside. The first odd thing I noticed was how many more men than women were there, at least a 2-to-1 ratio. Ashley and I tried to smooth over the awkwardness, but she still hadn't explained why she had lied about the babysitter. The party centered on a truth or dare type game. I overheard someone say they should get back to it, so I decided to settle in and see what I'd missed. I struck up conversations with a few guys who were chatty, possibly because of the drinks. Meanwhile, Ashley got visibly anxious and wanted to leave. That was a huge red flag. Before leaving, I wanted to try a drink, so I headed to the kitchen. I introduced myself to a random guy, let's call him Nick, and asked if he was having fun. Nick said he was enjoying the night. I told him I was thinking of making a move on one of the girls. I pointed to Ashley without identifying her as my wife and asked him who was taken. That's when Nick warned me that Ashley was off limits because she'd come with another guy, Jake, who was a friend of his. Nick casually bragged that Jake and Ashley met at a concert a month ago and had been hooking up ever since. I felt a pit in my stomach because Ashley and I had gone to that concert together. She vanished for a suspiciously long time when getting snacks, but I brushed it off then. After hearing Nick go on about how Jake had been seeing her, my head was spinning. Just then, Kelly joined our conversation, maybe trying to deflect the truth I was finding out, but it was too late. I asked Kelly where Ashley was, and she pointed me to the patio. That's where I found Ashley and Jake in a tense discussion. I walked up and introduced myself to Jake as Ashley's husband. Ashley panicked and tried to drag me away, but I shrugged her off. I calmly asked Jake if he knew Ashley was married. I didn't want to brawl. I just needed to know whether he'd been lied to or if he was complicit. Ashley was apologizing to me, visibly rattled. Jake, now alone with me on the patio, apologized and admitted he hadn't known she was married at first. I asked how many times they'd been together. He gave me a number, and I just told him to enjoy the rest of his night. I got in my car and drove home. I told Ashley I wanted a divorce. After that, I checked into a hotel where I wrote this all down as a way to process it. I feel lost. I have no experience with divorce or co-parenting because I didn't grow up in a split household. I just know I can't look at Ashley right now without feeling sick. I'll update further when I figure out my next steps. Story 2. I'm Stephanie, 18F, and my boyfriend, Ethan, is 19M. We've been together for 7 months. This incident happened about a month ago. Ethan has a fake ID and regularly goes out to bars with his friends, which I normally don't mind. That night, he went out with his friend Thomas. He was messaging me on Snapchat for most of the night, except for occasional 20-minute gaps. No big deal. At some point, Thomas and Ethan left one bar and headed to another. That's likely where they ran into a group of girls Ethan knew. For context, Thomas and another friend, Brandon, had connections to these girls, Hannah and Olivia. Hannah had recently hooked up with Brandon, and they'd been talking on and off. Olivia is Hannah's roommate. Ethan eventually left the bar with Brandon. He told me they were going to a friend's place, someone he called Elle, but Elle actually lives in the same complex as I do, and I quickly realized Ethan wasn't in our complex. It turned out he was a few blocks away. As the night went on, Ethan kept sending me random Snapchats, assuring me he was just playing poker and talking about the bar. I urged him to drink water and call me if he needed anything. For the pictures he sent, the apartment looked pretty girly. When I asked, Ethan claimed his friends there all had girlfriends, and that's why it looked that way. He then said he might sleep over because he was so drunk, which made me uneasy. I didn't know these people. Eventually, he decided to walk to my place, but since it was freezing, I drove over to pick him up. When we got back, we had a very intimate moment, more intense than usual, and then he passed out in my bed. I had a nagging feeling something was off, so I checked his phone. First, I looked at Snap Maps to see who lived at the apartment complex he claimed to be at. I found 4 girls, Hannah, Olivia, and 2 named Chris 1 and Chris 2 in his contacts. I decided to open his chats. Olivia, he had cleared their conversation, but I recovered enough to see him telling her we had broken up and basically begging her to hang out. She turned him down repeatedly, saying she was busy next door. Hannah. Their conversation hinted that Hannah had been trying to set Ethan up with Olivia before going to the apartment. Ethan wrote something like, "There's no way she thinks these guys are hotter than me," and Hannah replied, "Yeah, this didn't go as planned. I think you should leave." I also found messages to another girl, someone I'd asked him to remove from his phone, calling her hot. Clearly, he re-added her just to compliment her. I screenshotted everything on my own phone and also sent a message from Ethan's phone to Olivia, apologizing on his behalf for lying. I explained we were still together and that I would be dealing with him. Olivia messaged me the next morning, apologizing for the situation and insisting she had no interest in him. Embarrassing for Ethan, to say the least. It's worth mentioning that Hannah knew we were a couple. I'd met her before and thought we got along fine. When Ethan woke up, I was a wreck from staying up all night. I confronted him. I asked where he really went that night, who lived in that apartment, and why he lied to Olivia. At first, he was defensive, but then he admitted he was in the wrong. He kept saying I deserved better, but he never outright said, "I'm sorry." He called an Uber and left without showing real remorse. I was furious, hurt, and confused. We had a vacation planned in 2 weeks, and I texted his parents to say I wouldn't be going because their son had cheated on me. They told me to talk to him, suggesting it might be a misunderstanding. Later that day, I sat down with Ethan. Because I genuinely liked his family, I decided to hear him out. After our talk, I ended up forgiving him, and for the past couple of months, things have been smooth. But I can't stop thinking about it. What if Olivia had shown interest? What if in the future, someone else does? I'm asking, what should I do? That nagging fear hasn't gone away.